Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, the channel where we go through the good and bad of everything nerdy to make sure you spend your time on the best of the best. In today's video, I'll be doing a review on the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance tactics, so let's get into it. So this show is based on the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Netflix show, which is based on an 80s movie, The Dark Crystal. And this movie is kind of a cult classic, you might say, and it's by Jim Henson. So the entire movie is actually puppets. So it's similar to like the Muppets, but a little bit more dark storyline in this movie. So the original movie focuses on a couple races of the Mystics and the Skeksis. And the Skeksis are kind of like this monster bird creature that's pretty creepy looking thing. And then the Mystics are kind of like the friendly version of this weird alien looking thing. And so the evil Skeksis basically are ruling this planet through this castle, and they have the power of the Dark Crystal. And the Dark Crystal can actually be used to suck the life force from kind of the inhabitants of this planet, the Gelflings, which are kind of little tiny elf creatures, but again, in more Muppet form. And so it's kind of a weird movie in a sense where this main character is going on a quest to repair the Dark Crystal and kind of save the world. And so this is kind of the base of this storyline, the Age of Resistance, but the Age of Resistance is like a prequel that happens way before the activities of the original Dark Crystal movie. And so there's one season of this show on Netflix right now, and it's kind of what they adapted this game on. And so they took that storyline from the show, which is basically the Gelflings and the different clans on this planet kind of banding together to try and overthrow and create a rebellion against the evil Emperor and the Skeksis that are ruling the land at this point. And so they took that storyline and put it on top of a tactical game like Final Fantasy Tactics. And so that in and of itself intrigued me to want to check out this game. I like that style of game. I actually hadn't seen the first original 80s movie before I saw this game. And then I hadn't watched the Netflix show yet either, and I still haven't at this point. But the game itself attracted me enough through the tactical aspects to at least want to check it out. And then after a few hours into the game, I ended up going and watching the original 80s movie. And then I'm definitely planning on watching this season on Netflix as well. But I definitely think you can enjoy this game without necessarily seeing those. But I think if you watch those first, it's definitely going to enhance your experience playing this game. And the storyline itself is kind of similar, I've been told, to like a Game of Thrones, but more family-friendly version of that with the new Netflix show. But the game itself, the storyline is kind of a watered-down version of this. So in my perspective, I think I would recommend watching both the movie and the Netflix series before diving into this game, because I think you'll just appreciate it much more, because I'd have to assume that they watered it down some to fit it into, you know, a few text-based encounters here and there throughout the battles in the game. And then I also think it kind of deterred a little bit where I didn't necessarily feel for the characters as much. And in the game, the process is kind of trying to unite these different clans together against the evil empire. And so they're kind of introducing these different three storylines and having them intertwined together as you play through the game. And so you just get little clips here and there of the story from each clan. And so it maybe doesn't necessarily do the best job of kind of building those characters in this game format. Now, the game itself is where the game does a really good job, in my opinion, of creating that Final Fantasy Tactics-esque gameplay or Disgaea type gameplay, where it is that turn-based tactical bird's eye view, kind of like an online chessboard almost as you're playing through the game. So you get to build out your different characters as you play, and each character has the ability to have a main job class and then also a secondary job class. And so this is cool. You get abilities from each job class that you have, and then depending on your class, you can also equip specific types of weapon and armor as you go through the game as well. Now, your characters have their own base levels, so as you play and gain experience, you actually level up your characters, but then you also have levels for the different job classes that you're on. So you get stronger as you go through the levels, you unlock new abilities as you go through the levels of each job class. And then what's also neat is that there's other kind of more advanced job classes that you can choose from as well. But in order to unlock these, you need to level up these base job classes a certain number of levels, and then you can unlock the next tier. And then the final tier is going to be a combination of various mid-level jobs to unlock these high-level jobs. And so that was really cool. I like that aspect. I like how you can kind of mix and match and customize your character, choose abilities from the job classes that you're combining. But at the same time, that I think was also part of the downside of the game, is that I don't think they executed it as well as they could have. Where again, you can basically choose 3 abilities from your primary job class and 2 abilities from your secondary job class. Now, it's, I guess, part of the tactics aspect with it. There's certain abilities that you get, but a lot of them require you to mark an enemy first, or the enemy needs to be poisoned first or stunned before you can even use this ability. Well, that character might not have the ability to actually mark that other character, right? Or to inflict that status element to even use the abilities that you're unlocking for them. And I understand how that can tie into the tactics of it, where you might have another character using that ability and then they play off each other. And that I can appreciate that, but it's frustrating when the characters that you're leveling up and getting these great moves for can't even use the moves themselves. So it kind of is weird in that sense, where you'd think you would power up and level up your character, they get a new ability, they'd actually be able to use it without having to rely on other characters as you're playing. So that aspect I didn't necessarily like, where I found a lot of the abilities that you're unlocking almost became useless unless you had the perfect setup with other characters. So I didn't like how that was laid out, but I did like the ability to mix and match jobs as you went along and unlock these new ones. Now, you do get a bunch of different equipment that you can buy and get through battles as well, but it's definitely not as comprehensive as like a Final Fantasy Tactics or like a Disgaea or anything like that, where you have, you know, hundreds of items that you can equip and weapons and armor and all these different combinations. There's very few throughout the game that you actually got access to and could equip on your characters. And each one of the characters had kind of their own special ability, and it's where they might be better at being a healer, for example, or maybe they're physically stronger. So maybe they're naturally better suited to be a soldier type class or one of the mage type classes. So you can still have them learn other different abilities and become those other job classes, but they're maybe not necessarily suited for it as good as some other characters. Now, unlike a Final Fantasy Tactics, for example, where it's kind of unlimited the number of characters that you can recruit and build and mix and match, there's really only a set number that you can actually have in this game on your roster. And for the most part, I really just found myself using the same 5 characters throughout the entire game. And so they were in, you know, the levels of around 30 to 40 to 50, depending on, you know, what area I was in. And then the rest of the team that I never even used were sitting around like level 6 or 7. And so I think it's kind of like you find that team that you like and you just keep using them as you go, because in other tactics type games, you might have easy stages that you go to where you can kind of level up and grind and build your characters up. But in this one, they did have stages that would randomly appear on the map that you could go to kind of redo a new battle that didn't really impact the storyline, but you could level up your characters in. But they typically tended to scale with your highest level character. And so it would be kind of hard to bring in one of your lower characters that you maybe hadn't been using to level them up and make them efficient in future battles. So like I said, I really just found myself using the same few characters throughout the entire game and just ignoring the rest. I do think the battles, though, were a good challenge, and a lot of them were pretty fun. But there were a few here and there that were pretty difficult, where you're kind of protecting individual characters as you're trying to clear the level, or you need to get to a certain point on the level and certain number of characters need to survive when you get there, but then they're throwing in kind of characters you need to protect. And so those got a little bit frustrating because they were obviously a lot worse than your characters, and you had to strategize and figure out how to keep them alive while also beating the level. And one thing that was kind of different that I don't think I've ever seen in a tactical game like this is that sometimes when your characters would die on the battlefield, their body would still be there, and you might have a healer that had a revive type spell, and so you could bring them back to life. But what was weird in this game is that if you stepped on that spot where that person was laying and, you know, passed away, if you stepped on that spot, they actually disappeared from the level. And it wasn't just you that did that. An enemy could just step on that dead body and then it'd be gone from the game, kind of eliminating your chance to revive that character throughout that battle. So in some levels, that was definitely pretty frustrating because, again, I'd never really seen that in other tactical games. If you have the ability to revive someone, their body just kind of stays there and you can go to it. I know in the original Final Fantasy Tactics, if someone died, it kind of had a countdown that went through and you had so many turns or kind of so many rounds that you had available to go and revive them. And then if you didn't, they would die and disappear. But in this one, it just happened to be if you stepped on someone. So you might have someone die and an enemy might step on them that next turn. You never even got the opportunity to bring them back into the battle. So that was a little weird and a little frustrating. And I wasn't necessarily a fan of that aspect of the game. So overall, I think this is a decent game. I think it's worth playing and checking out if you're into tactical type games. Or like I said, I think if you maybe watch the original film and then watch the Netflix series and then play this game, I think you'll appreciate it a lot more and you'll get a lot more out of it, because I think they just watered down the story to the point where it wasn't as impactful, which it sounds like the show is really well received and a lot of people like it. So I certainly am still going to check the show out after playing this game. But like I said, I think if you watch those first, you're going to enjoy this more. The tactics aren't incredibly difficult. They are fun to play. The battles are fun. It's fun leveling up your characters, but I just think they fell short in a few different areas of this game. So it's good, but maybe not the greatest tactical game out there. I also think it might be more accessible to kind of first-time players in this type of genre. So if you're new to the tactical strategy type game and you want to check a game out, I think this could be a great entry point into the genre because it's not overly difficult. It's simplified down in a lot of aspects where there's not hundreds of pieces of equipment, hundreds of abilities, 30, 40 different job types that you can choose from. It's a kind of, like I said, a little bit watered down in every aspect of the tactical aspects, building your characters, the storyline, kind of everything in general. But it is fun. It's an easy play as you go through, besides a few levels here and there where you're fighting maybe the last few bosses and areas of the game. But let me know in the comments below if you guys have watched the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Netflix series, if you enjoy that. If you like the movie, if you think the puppets are overly creepy, let me know in the comments below about that too. And then if there's other good tactical games I should check out, I'm definitely a fan of that genre. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy Tactics, the Fire Emblem series, Disgaea games, and things like that. So if there's other games I should check out in that genre, let me know in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on those bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out here. And if you'd like to help us support the channel, pick out content and more, consider becoming a patron of ours over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you'd like to plug into our live streams and Let's Plays we do on the channel, you can follow us over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Twitch. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.